Your physical karma, your mental karma, emotional and energetic activity that's happening in these few hours of wakefulness, how much of it happened consciously if you look at it? For almost all human beings, it is less than 1%, way below 1%. If you became unconscious when you're driving, definitely accidental events will happen. When that happens, you always tend to ascribe it to something else, either somebody else's bad driving or some divine will or some negative force acting upon you, things like this. If you don't stop these things, you cannot transform your vasana. Maybe their body is growing, maybe the information is growing, maybe their bank balances are growing, but they are not going anywhere simply because they are tied down to the familiar. They have a bond with the familiar. Is it possible to rewrite your software consciously now? Definitely it is possible. The question is, are you willing to keep the old software aside and rewrite it, or do you want to overwrite it with corrections and corrections?
What we are referring to as sanskara is just the consequence of karma. There are three aspects: karma, vasana and sanskara. Karma means the accumulated imprints, previous actions and the accumulated imprints of that. See, it doesn't matter what's happening right now. Let us say the whole world is burning, but you don't have a single thought on your mind. You're not even aware of it. Nothing happens. Let's say just one little place in the world is burning, but right now you generate a huge amount of thought and emotion about it. Now there's an impression, isn't it? Now there's an impression. So we are calling it karma because it's a certain type of action. It's a certain type of action that you're performing. Physical, mental or emotional type of action is having its impact. It is being… the residue is left in you, this is karma. So, a huge accumulation of this information will create a certain tendency in you. Certain established forms of tendencies will establish themselves. These tendencies we refer to as vasana. The word vasana literally means smell. So if you are sitting here and smelling like a jasmine, bees will come in search of you. If you're sitting here and smelling some other way, let's say, no, why? If you're smelling like a mango, then flies will come. If you're smelling like a mosquito repellent, people will come. Mosquito will go, people will come, right? Why are you missing out the big ones? So, depending upon what type of animation is happening from you, accordingly you attract that kind of life and you also move in that direction. This is known as vasana. Vasana is an appropriate word because it is functioning like a smell. Depending upon what is the type of impressions you have, you are exuding a certain type of tendency. In English language, smell would be a wrong word, we can say it's a tendency. You're creating a certain tendency within you. Because of these tendencies, you draw certain things and you also move in certain directions. So what you call as sanskara is the consequence of these two. Now you went there and right now you behave in a certain way, you act in a certain way. Now we say this is his sanskara. That means this is the consequence that he is bearing from his fruit of action. Whatever the karma is bearing this kind of fruit right now. So, instead of complicating this with too much terminology, we will just call it karma. Karma and its consequence. So, whatever your individual karma, there is a collective karma. I think this was made clear the other day. Your karma is essentially deciding how you experience the world. It is not deciding where you are in the world, what you're doing, it decides the experience. You may be born in a palace because of your sanskara, but your karma is such you suffer. Because of your sanskara, you may be born on the street side, in a slum, but your karma is such that you're a joyful human being. So, whatever the past karma has created a certain sanskara which you cannot change 100% instantly. It has a whole… it needs to be worked. See, suppose you are born in a very poor family, tomorrow morning you can't become rich. You have to work it. Not that you can't become rich, but you can't become rich tomorrow morning. It may take 10 years or 25 years for you to come to a reasonably wealthy state or at least reasonably okay state. So your sanskara cannot be changed instantly because it's a consequence, but your karma can be changed instantly. You understand what I'm saying? Your karma, you can change it right now. That means you can change how you behave right now and how you experience life right now. But the situation you may not be able to change because the situation involves many things, not just you. Where only you're involved, you can change instantly if you're willing. But even if you and me are willing, the world may not be willing right now to change, isn't it? So, the collective karma is always there, which creates a certain external consequence. But your experience of life is still determined by what kind of karma you have, not by the social sanskara or the national sanskara. National sanskara is deciding our economic status maybe, yes? See, in one country, suppose here, the village that you went to yesterday, they're all earning 80 rupees, which was less than $2, but now it's $2. They're earning better because the American dollar is dropping. They were earning much less than $2, now they're earning $2. That doesn't mean their income has gone up, the dollar has dropped. Men are earning 80 rupees, women are earning around 45, 50, 60 rupees depending upon their skills. So, he's earning $2 per day. Suppose he earns $10 per day, he's a rich man in his society. His joy is just the same as the kind of joy you will have if you make $1 billion. Nothing less, isn't it? Yes or no? In terms of his experience. Suddenly tomorrow he starts making $10 per day, he feels like a billionaire because he compares himself with other people around him and he's doing really well and he feels great. He has a great self-esteem and he enjoys his life thoroughly. He even buys a local brew of arak in the evening and drinks and rolls around a little bit. He can afford all that all of a sudden. But $10 a day, you wouldn't be happy, isn't it? You wouldn't be happy at all, $10 a day. So, the social sanskara is not deciding the happiness of a person. How he is within himself is all there is. So social realities, whatever they are, 1,000 years ago, all of us lived in a slum and we were okay, isn't it? Slums were great places to live, isn't it so? Yes? Slums were really great places to live because all of us lived in a slum 1,000 years ago. It was just a wonderful place. Only one king had a castle or a palace. All of us lived in a slum and it was just fine. Now because so many of us have this, and some of us don't have that, comparing ourselves to that somebody else, we are causing this whole thing. So the world's karma or the collective karma will decide how the world will be externally. It will not decide the human experience. Human experience is always decided by individual karma. So, we always say, if everything is going well, we look at you, you're wealthy, you have all the 4 limbs intact, everything is fine with you, but you have a long face. We say, that's his karma. It says everything. On the surface and in the deepest level, it is saying everything. Everybody uses the term with their own level of understanding, but actually it is hitting the very core. It is hitting the very core. We are saying his experience is created by him. Even the person who is saying doesn't understand what he is saying, unfortunately, because he is also an expert in creating misery. When somebody else is miserable, he understands. When he is, he doesn't understand. That's the whole problem with the world, isn't it so? See, whatever is happening to the society around us, the country around us or the world around us, is simply a consequence of what kind of actions we do today, isn't it? What we did yesterday, right now we're either enjoying or suffering it. What we do today, tomorrow, either you or somebody will enjoy it or suffer it. That's the only way it's created. That's the only way anything is created, isn't it so? Whatever you're enjoying today is not your work. It happened once. A scientist, an old man, went and sat in a football match. A young man in his early 20s was sipping Coca-Cola and looked at the old guy and wanted to have a dig at him. Then he said, you guys of your time and your antiquity just can't understand us. We are today's people. You don't know anything about our lives, nor do you understand life at all in this world. Because you guys, you people, you didn't have a television. You didn't know what's a computer. You didn't know what's a spacecraft. And you did not even know what is a Coca-Cola. What kind of life was that? So the old-timer said, yes, we did not have all those things when we were children, but we created all those things. What have you done, shithead? That's the sanskara.
Sadhguru, you mentioned in the book about vasana, I believe I'm saying it, if I'm saying it correctly, that each individual has a unique fragrance or smell that we emit due to our past accumulation of impressions, both physically, emotionally. Can you speak on that and describe how that affects us?
What can I do when sage talks about smell? So, what is referred to as vasana is an appropriate description in terms of how it works. That is, if you have a certain type of accumulation, there will be a certain type of vasana. This is not a physical smell, this is not an odor as you know it, but it will create a certain amount of energy, certain kind of tendencies which will make you lean in a certain way, which will in turn make certain aspects of life come towards you and you move in certain directions. This is happening because probably in today's world it's better I say, because you have a certain software, that is how you function. That is the leaning that you have. So, if you have written your software unconsciously at one time, is it possible to rewrite your software consciously now? Definitely it is possible. The question is, are you willing to keep the old software aside and rewrite it, or do you want to overwrite it with corrections and corrections? Well, both are possible, but if you're willing to rewrite, then it is possible. It doesn't matter what your karmas have been till this moment, but from the next moment, life can be entirely different. There is today substantial scientific evidence. We always know this by experience. For example, I've been working in southern Indian prisons and also a few prisons in United States. This program is referred to as enough freedom for impression. These are all people who have criminal background. Generally, because I worked with long-term prisoners, they've all come either for murder or more. So if you look at their history sheets, they have done terrible things. Many of them are there for life. Some of them that I worked with were on death rows. So when you meet these people, well, those people who met them in the wrong situations, unfortunately, probably they lost their lives or something terrible was done to them, all those things happen. But now here they are with me, but they are like little children, jumping and laughing and playing around like little kids. Because this moment's karma, you can decide. It doesn't matter what it's been. Your fears, your guilt, your struggles, everything can be left behind if only you perform this moment's karma consciously. So whatever the vasana, whatever the natural tendencies that you have, or let me take away the word natural because it's not created by nature, it is self-scripted. But maybe you're writing in your sleep, so you do not understand that you wrote it. So if we look at this thing from morning to evening, let's say from the moment you woke up till this moment, your physical karma, your mental karma, emotional and energetic activity that's happening in these few hours of wakefulness, how much of it happened consciously if you look at it? For almost all human beings, it is less than 1%, way below 1%. If we want to experiment with this, you take a bicycle, please don't drive a car like this. Take a bicycle, ride for 10 minutes, but 9 minutes your eyes are closed. Well, you know where we can pick you up, all right? This is all that's happening because a large part of the karma is being created unconsciously. Now, life and its consequences are looking accidental. If you became unconscious when you're driving, definitely accidental events will happen. When that happens, you always tend to ascribe it to something else, either somebody else's bad driving or some divine will or some negative force acting upon you, things like this. If you don't stop these things, you cannot transform your vasana. Your tendencies have to be transformed, means it is important that you rise above the accumulation first of all. If you are dipping into the accumulation, then your tendencies cannot change. See, this is almost now nearly 40 years ago, 39 years ago to be precise. One day I'm just sitting there and I just burst into ecstasy for no reason. Every cell in my body is dripping ecstasy. When I sit down and examine this, what is happening within me, what I found was, if I don't put my hand into the mess of my mind, every cell in my body bursts with ecstasy. I experimented this for a few weeks and then I decided, this is it. I have discovered this. If you don't mess with your mind, everything becomes ecstatic. Who wouldn't want it? I could not imagine who wouldn't want it. So I sat down and made a plan. On that day, the world's population was 5.6 billion people, and I made a plan in 2.5 years' time, I will make the whole world ecstatic. This was the plan when I was 25 years of age. Look at me, 40 years. Today people say we've touched over 1 billion people, but billion people is still not the world. There are 7.6 billion people, populations have gone up. So what I'm saying is, people are so deeply invested in their miseries. Even if you offer the best, they will hang on to that because they like the familiar. It is the attraction of the familiar that will not allow a human being to step out of their past, because they're always harping on the past simply because they want to be in familiar terrain. At the same time, they complain their life is boring, nothing new is happening. It is like a person who ties his boat to the pier and then starts rowing. If you keep on rowing hard, it'll give you a lot of good exercise, maybe you'll grow muscles, but you will not go anywhere. You will not go anywhere. This is happening to a whole lot of humanity. All that's happening is, something is growing. Maybe their body is growing, maybe the information is growing, maybe their bank balances are growing, but they are not going anywhere simply because they are tied down to the familiar. familiar. They have a bond with the familiar. This essentially comes from the fear of freedom. Everybody talks about freedom, but when it comes to them, they are terrified. Freedom means you must be free from yourself also, because you are the biggest bondage. Your own memories, your own genetics, your own other memories which are there, which is largely unconscious, this is the biggest bondage. But everybody seeks bondage. When people seek in variety of ways, whether they like to hold the hand of the god that they've been taught about, or they can only be friendly with people that they know. There are known people and strangers in their life. It's not like one humanity. When their experience of life is always about being comfortable with the familiar, they will not want to rewrite their software. As I said, even if you teach them a simple way that they can live in an ecstatic way, no, they have an attachment to the old experiences of life, and this will not let them be what they want, what they could be. They cannot explore the full potential of their life simply because their attachment to the past is such. This attachment to the past is essentially coming from the fear of freedom. Everybody thinks bondage causes suffering. No, human suffering is essentially because of the freedom that nature has offered to us. That if a dog or a cat or a tiger or a lion, if you take any of the animals, they have no freedom of how to be. It is been determined by nature. Little bit of latitude is there for them. But for a human being, there is a total freedom. You can be whichever way you want. This moment you can be a wonderful human being, next moment you can be a horrendous human being, next moment you can be godlike, next moment you can be the very devil, you can be whatever in a given moment. From a little child, let's say when you were 5, 6 years of age, how joyful, exuberant and alive you were, and how alive and joyful you are today, it has largely gone down for people. This means they are practicing suicide in installments. Because today everything is done in installments. You want to buy a house, it's in installments. You want to buy an automobile, it's in installments. Even if you want to get married, it happens in installments. So naturally, this also happens in installments, that people die in installments, that slowly they are killing themselves. Killing themselves means just this: the more and more they become hesitant to leave the memory and step into the new moment, the less and less alive they become. Or, see, what is life and what is death are two faces of the same coin. We can say, right now, I am living. Or we can say, right now I am dying. One day the process will be complete. Both are same thing said in two different ways. So, it is the same coin flipping this way and that way. So either you can be living, or you can feel the power of life within you, or you can feel the power of death within you every moment of your life. So when fear, anxiety, this and that takes over, you are feeling the power of death. When love, joy, exuberance takes over, you're feeling the power of life. Now the question is just this: which one do we need to invest in? It's not about right and wrong. See, with death, the very nature of death is such, death has never happened inefficiently to anybody. When death happened, it happened absolutely total. Nobody died half. But life, whichever way you live your life, there is still room for improvement. You can do it whichever way you want, still you can make it better, you can live it better, you can experience it better. Because of this possibility and because of this sense of limitless possibility of life, that you can make it not little more better, you can endlessly push the boundaries of life. Because of that, your attention and involvement needs to be with life. Death, you don't have to worry, you will do it very efficiently, believe me.